Now, COVID-19 has created massive disruption, no doubt, across all sectors of the world. But again, another one to fall victim is our US wine industry, that is New Zealand's largest wine export market, resulting in lower total sales and significant revenue losses for some US wineries. And of course, we want to find out from this report from Rabobank how much that's affecting here at home when we're hearing about some really high profit levels, especially off the back of Delegat. So joining us now is New Zealand Winegrowers CEO Philip Gregan. Good evening, Philip.
Good evening.
What is going on? Is it a bit of a mixed bag? And of course, this is all tied to the shut of on-premise sales.
Yeah, look, there's about 2 or 3 or 4 stories all going on at the same time. The close down in the hospitality trade obviously has had a big impact. The surge in online sales has compensated for that, and also the big supermarkets and big retailers have benefited as well. And what that means for New Zealand businesses is that those companies who have a strong presence in retail, they've done very well. Those ones who have had a bigger focus on premise, so in restaurants, they are really struggling. But the net effect across New Zealand wine at the moment is we believe that sales are up, and that's certainly what the data is saying.
Okay, so net-wise, we're still looking positive.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But that, each company is experiencing this in a different way, and some of them are going very well, and others of them, they're really going to be struggling.
And how encouraging to have a couple of our fantastic wineries, Craigie Range and Ripon, I believe it, make this incredible list among the world's top 20 vineyards.
It's a fantastic story, isn't it? And anybody who's been to Ripon and seen the view, or been to Craigie and experienced that what they offer there, they are just indicative of the fantastic wineries that we have in New Zealand. And I was in correspondence with my Australian colleagues today, and they were noting that New Zealand did better on that list than the Australians, which always makes us feel good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with the news of apparently New Zealand's envious of Australia. With that, no.
In wine at the moment, I think they might be envious of us.
Yes, yes. How is your cellar doors experiencing domestic tourism? I know I've done my bit so far and continue to do.
Well, look, I think that's the point. Lots of Kiwis are getting out there, and the cellar doors that are open, especially during the school holidays at the moment, appear to be doing quite well. So that's incredibly encouraging. I was in Marlborough last week and was at a vineyard for lunch, and that restaurant was full, which is really good news. So we've really just got to encourage Kiwis to keep on going out there, visiting their wineries, consuming local, or consuming in other regions when they get the chance to travel within New Zealand.
It's very encouraging because every single one of those Kiwis are becoming ambassadors when they go back overseas, or of course have visitors here. So it's a fantastic time to reconnect, isn't it? The finest wine producing country that we are. Hey, just going back to that trade situation in the US. US is the largest exporter for New Zealand. How are we going in other markets, and in particular the changing palette of the Chinese?
Well, look, in our second biggest markets, the UK, we're seeing a very similar sort of trend to that in the United States. Our number 3 markets, Australia, again, a similar trend, and they've had the rebound in cases in Australia in the last few days, and clearly that's going to complicate things a lot. China for us is not a huge market for our wine, but I think we're seeing the same sort of trends there again. There is big questions about how long it's going to take for the on-premise for restaurants to rebound, and the slight surge they had in Beijing a few weeks ago. They're all creating uncertainty for consumers as well as the trade.
And so with a really bumper harvest that we've had this year, so there's going to be no issue, do you think, in terms of processing through that throughput?
Look, everything we've seen at the moment, and this is, but there's all this uncertainty, of course. Everything we're seeing at the moment says the big picture around New Zealand wine remains very positive in our key markets. The challenge is for those wineries who have been selling into on-premise or whatever, and really getting consumers to engage. For them, in on-premise, hopefully when the border opens again at some stage of the next 12 to 18 months, when those foreign tourists start coming back into New Zealand.
And I mentioned there in the introduction, we've obviously had across all sectors of the primary sector such a skill shortage. And of course, viticulture has obviously not got away with it either, especially going into the harvest season. But now we're getting into pruning. How are they getting on with finding staff and redeploying the unemployed, etc.?
Look, we think pruning appears to be going well. We've had generally favourable weather. We're able to start early because we had an early season this year. And so in some regions, they got underway with pruning about a month earlier. So we think we're okay at the moment. Our big concern now is what's going to happen over spring and summer. We have a lot of specialist workers come into their country for vintage. There aren't going to be the backpackers around that we've seen in past years. So we are worried, like every other sector, about what the labour availability is going to be over the next 6 to 12 months. It's certainly one of the number one concerns.
So just another industry to get in line. Philip, if I could just use this opportunity, I'd really like to ask you, because I know many parts of the primary sector hold your part of the sector in such high regard. The Primary Sector Council visions of Te Taiao have been released in recent weeks, and everybody's being reasonably complimentary. I spoke to a gentleman who I won't name, but you'll know well, here at Lincoln University, who's highly involved in accreditation programs. He told me that the Sustainable Wine Growing Accreditation is the best that we have in this country, and has achieved greatness, and we should all look to that. What would be your message to all parts of the primary industry in terms of coming together around a vision and accreditation in your learnings?
Look, I think the Prime Minister at the launch last week said something really interesting, and that was that these documents, the Fit for the Better World, Te Taiao, etc., to a larger extent, they're already reflecting what is happening in the various sectors. And, in our sector, I know with sustainable wine growing, but other sectors are doing these things as well. And I think it is about extending what we're doing. There will be some new stuff that we have to do. But I think these documents really reflect the huge strides that are being made on farm, on vineyard, on orchard, etc. So I don't think if these documents had been launched 20 years ago, it would be a completely different matter. But they really are a reflection of the enormous energy that's out there amongst all farmers, amongst all vineyard owners, to really look after the land, because that's their number one asset. And it makes a huge amount of logic and good commercial sense to do that well. And I just think, there's a lot of positives in there.
What a great comment and reflection on that. Thank you so much, Philip. Bringing us together and tying it around what we're already doing. What a great message. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Philip Gregan is the CEO for New Zealand Winegrowers.
This is Sarah's Country.